All right, I'm super excited to be here, guys. I've been coaching for 18 plus years now, I think. I've been with WEC Method now for about 6, 7 years with David WEC here, and was with my co-head coach, Alex Canellis here. So show of hands, how many people were here for the landmine cert today? Most of the room, beautiful. So a lot of what I'm gonna go over today is gonna sort of tie in a lot of the language of why you were doing the movements that you were doing within sort of that certification, how I've run with that, and some other variations of that concept. And I want to get you guys up and moving with me a little bit, if that's okay with you guys. That's going to be really big on me, for me. We can skip this. I don't care about this. This is WEC Method. This is me and Dave. A lot of this is going to be a clinic on my different hairstyles, just FYI. So I started with a mohawk. No. But we'll move on from this. I don't need this. We'll move on from that. So I have like roughly, I've been teaching certifications for WEC Method for, I guess, the whole time, 6 years. And I think I have roughly almost 2,000 coaches under my belt now that are running. And we have master coaches and people that teach our education model worldwide, so globally, which is really awesome. Let's stay right here. This is perfect. Basically, what I want to sort of present to you guys, thinking outside the box a little bit, is a rotational language. So something that can define all movement and a way that we can move, we can cue, we can build a relationship and an intuition in our own body, and then how we can sort of carry that to any modality that we do. So I personally, I've done just about every single modality you could name at me. You could just keep throwing things at me, and I've done it at a decent level. And something that really bothered me through the years of doing that was I felt like I was always moving on to the next thing and leaving something that I really cared about behind, and I felt like I lost a skill set. And this movement language and the way that we develop things at WEC Method has sort of given me like a hierarchy of movement that allows me to branch out and assimilate different skill sets and reacquire skill sets that I've had from over the years, and it allows me to be playful and enjoy movement as a whole. It also, as like a coach, it allows me to tap into a lot of different fields of teaching that I wouldn't traditionally have thought I would have been capable of doing. Like at this point, I work with pro baseball players. I work primarily right now with like MMA fighters and UFC fighters, and which I'm just going to drop this right now because tomorrow night, if you're not doing anything at like 7, my fighter Angela Hill is maybe, I don't think she's headliner, but she's in the card tomorrow night. So if you got a chance, got to check that out. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little talking. This is a portion of the certification I teach. I sort of want to talk about a lot of language that we use in WEC Method, sort of where it comes from, and sort of paint a picture of that for you guys. I want to talk to you about different forms of rotation. I'm gonna get you guys up to play around with some different forms of rotation, something we call coiling core training. Coil was thrown out a lot during the landmine certification. We're going to experience that. I'm going to teach you some cool athletic advantages outside of just those specific patterns. And then we'll go through that. And then I'm going to talk about some specific sequencing, like if you get into more sports-specific type of application, how you can apply sort of that thought process and start seeing how it can marry with the gym and also with like things out on the field of that nature. All right? So WEC Method, I'm going to sort of start at the top of what like health and fitness can be. And this is the idea that health and fitness is sort of comprised in our head of multiple little categories here. Be nutrition, that's not something I specialize in, so don't ask me questions there. Mindset and spirituality, I do think I have some say here, but it's not going to be the focus of what we're traditionally doing at WEC Method. Biomechanics are going to be the big piece for us, okay? And this is something we're all trying to strive better to do, and it's to move better, okay? And move more intuitively. And for us, we're going to always be thinking about this concept of external forces and how they affect our biomechanics. And those external forces for us primarily are going to be the idea of gravity drawing down on the body. So we use a term, we say like verticality or something like that, where we're constantly thinking of this idea that gravity is drawing down on my bones and my structure, and how does my body respond to that to stay as an erect human being, all right? So that's sort of going to be like a general hierarchy of things I'm thinking about. Is how's gravity affecting exactly what I'm doing at this given moment? Can we move this? Who am I talking to? This guy. All right, cool. This is just some examples of the idea of, I'm really big on like positivity and positive language. So if I say anything negative, please fucking tell me. And I cuss a lot. But I want to talk about the idea of resisting resisting external forces versus funneling external forces, okay? And these are just some exercise examples that are just mirrors of each other. So if I'm doing like I have a lateral external force staying flat, this would be resisting the force comparative to funneling the force down. So thinking how gravity is going to draw and move through the body, vice versa with the lunge, with a kneeling press, with a standing row or something of that nature. So just to generally show that, and then this is showing field of sport and sort of how the angles of the body sort of assist and go towards this idea of funneling gravity. So you can sort of see the carryover between the bottom exercises, which what we call big catting, versus feeling squared off. If we move it. And actually, if anybody like wants to speak up or keep this interactive too, I love being interactive. So if anybody has comments or anything, feel free to reach out. Let's move on from this one. I don't need that one. So when we're playing around with that idea of biomechanics, we want to look at like all the ideas of like the different things that are important to a human being. And I sort of think these categories, so you could sort of throw in anything a human being could do into these, sort of bucket them into these portions here. So the idea of swinging tools, I think that makes pretty good sense. The idea of throwing and catching, and then the idea of locomotion. So locomotion is like a prime human function that we try to like prioritize as a reason to why we're training the way we train. So the idea that we all walked in the room today and we all walked out of the room today, we want every one of those steps to be better. I'm wearing our little motto shirt here. We say every step stronger, because if I can make you accumulate so much volume during steps, walking, that if we can make those more perfect, then we can accrue more volume of doing something perfect, and we can build up fully from that, all right? So if I say, I'll just ask this, I always pose this question. If I say locomotion to you guys, what does that mean? I've mentioned walking, but does that mean anything else to anybody? Crawling, okay, cool. Anything else? Yeah, movement through space is always a great answer. That's the bucket of all things. So in what we do and the way I think, because I have some exposure to 3 different types of locomotion, I like to think of land, sea, and air. So walking, running, crawling, any of that nature. I like to think of brachiating, so monkey bars, swinging, aerials. And I like to think of fluid, so hydrodynamics. And then for me, if I'm saying that we train locomotion, I want to think about it more outside of the idea of just ground-based stuff. I want something that when I'm training locomotion, that it carries over between all 3 of those modalities for sure, because there's a very distinct difference to them. You know what I mean? Like just A to B, I could still be on the ground. You know what I mean? I want to think of this idea of what is the commonality between running, swimming, and aerial. And the idea for me is it's core-driven movement, or the spinal engine thought process. All right? And then I throw these things up here, and I usually present this in education, but the idea that strength training is not a priority in somebody's life is odd to me. And for me, the idea of throwing and catching sort of encompasses and buckets every single exercise that you do in the gym that involves weights, okay? The clean and jerk, you picked it up and threw it, all right? I was a carpenter for most of my life. That's actually where I would pride most of my strength to come from, is just working. And the idea that you have to pick things up and carry them and put them places. So pick it up, put it. All right, and strongman really screams to me. So I like that idea of, I say throw catch, most people think baseball, football, you're thinking of a sport, something of that nature. And then I just immediately take the ball idea and say big stone, Atlas stone, right? Pick stone, put stone. So throw and catch is super valuable, and that will sort of encompass our thought process at WEC Method on lifting. Wow, let's move on. Cool. Oh, this is Angie. She's fighting tomorrow. So I like to just show candid kind of shots to people. So she's swinging a rope. She was throwing that's okay. She was throwing a med ball, and she was dragging a sled. So this is the foundation of WEC Method. So I mentioned I sort of wanted to talk to you guys about like a rotational language. So I sort of am painting the idea that I think we can bucket exercise or movement into sort of these categories. And then within those categories, I want to look at how the core functions, and then trying to name and process that so that we can all communicate as individuals with each other in the complexity that movement is. And the idea is that there is something we call coiling core, okay? Coiling core, I'm just gonna demo it, and I'm gonna actually have all you guys do this in a little bit, so I'll talk your ears off for a second, but I would really like to get you guys to feel this. I feel like feeling is the most powerful thing, but the idea of coiling is the idea of creating a side bend with an external intent or factor. So I'm gearing this side bend towards something, and I'm creating this contraction here, for a lack of a better term, right? And I'm able to maintain that and keep it, and I can walk. I can still do the gait cycle. It's got like a different type of giddy up to it, all right? But it might look like something, if you're familiar with like guns or things like that, that's rifling. If you're my favorite, athletics, it's bowling, right? Okay, so what you'll notice with that is there's like these unique special experiences that if we retain a coil, it opens up an opportunity to do like a novel thing as a human being, all right? With knowing that there is now, so that's like the foundation to WEC method. If you want to look into what me and Dave do, and you really loved what landmine was, like that is the key to those exercises. Like you have to learn to master that, and it's a simple concept. Once you have that, you then recognize because there are sides, that means we can move between the sides. And we define that as rotational movement training. This is sort of the encompassment of leaving that side and doing anything from it. So typically we'll just say if I was on the right side, I'm gonna move to the left side, and then I'm gonna move back to the right side, and I'm gonna have that reciprocating effect that'll sort of end up having this sort of like spiral feel to it, and it will carry itself through the movement. And then thirdly, the bilateral torsion. Again, I said I'm very big on lifting. I love it. I think there's a lot of value to it. And if you're somebody that wants to power lift or do something more in the center, so the bilateral, we're gonna get into this. I'll demonstrate, or I will sort of talk and showcase this idea of torsion theory. It's a concept I learned from a gentleman named Julian Pinau with something called StrongFit, if anybody's ever heard of him. I think Ben has. Anybody else heard of Julian? Yeah? Huh? I think it's Pinau, P-I-N-N-E-A-U, Pinau, yeah, Pinau. It's French, right? It's French? Yeah. Yeah, E-A-U, yeah, E-A-U, yes, thank you. But yeah, a lot of the bilateral stuff, I sort of educated some of the thought process we use off of Julian, so it's really valuable stuff there. And you may hear like when Dave talks tomorrow morning, he's gonna throw out terms that we coin, so I wanna make sure you guys are sort of familiar as we sort of throw out this stuff throughout the weekend. Cool, so we got, this is the language. This is how we speak. This is, if you look anything up on it, we're on it. So let's move on. These are just them sort of, I will show this real quick. Kind of terrible blow up of this, but I wanted to get like sort of standard, like stock photos of people doing it. So it's not just like coach up here telling you like, this is how it's done, and I do it perfectly, and it's not actually out in the wild there. So something that was really profound to me as a carpenter was the idea in coiling, carrying plywood. So when you watch this guy carrying the plywood, he naturally has to create this side bend to get under the weight, and it forces him, because there's literally an object in the way, to have to stay in that position in order to traverse, right? He's gotta get the plywood to the house so he can build the roof type thing. So for me, I think that just growing up, doing that so much made me very susceptible, I guess, yeah, to David's information as he, that's not the right word, whatever. Receptive, jeez. Words, yeah, but receptive to the information Dave was giving me in regards to that, because it's something I had felt and experienced in my life, and I understood the value of why it had to be done. Like, it made a lot of sense. So stretching, B-boys, we get a lot of dancers that come to my education, which I really pride myself in. I find that dancers tend to not liking fitness type stuff, and they pop into this stuff because they can see the shapes. Shapes matter in that realm a lot, and because we make shapes that sort of mimic those behaviors, and I have a clear understanding of how to find that shape and the feeling behind them within other movement, it's a really valuable thing for individuals in that realm. Rotational movement, again, is really just gonna come to reciprocating stuff, so like running, swimming, freestyle stroke, hand over hand monkey bar, things like that. And then bilateral torsion would be, CrossFit's really great with doing very athletic versions of bilateral torsion. So most people, when they talk about it, they talk about like push, pull, like bench, squat, deadlift type thought, but kipping, all of the traditional centerline kip stuff, like the kipping pull up, the kipping muscle up, they're a version of like I call it an athletic transition. That's something I talk about in my education. But it's super athletic and it's super awesome. And it's an understanding of how to use like your musculature in a very unique way. We'll move on, brother. Thank you. Again. Just move on. Thank you. A bunch of random things. This is another haircut. This is essentially, if everybody at Landmine today, this looks familiar, right? This was basically your landmark position, that first one. We call them landmarks as well. The elbow's not hugged to the side per se in this one, but what I want to talk about here, and this is what I'm going to get you guys to sort of experience, is I mentioned gait being sort of the foundation of why I'm doing what we do. And when I take a step, so I take a step and I've now like got this lead leg and I have a trailing leg. And if I side bend over the lead leg, we call this a front side coil because that's the lead leg, it's the front, right? And I am side bending on it with intent to be there. Now, if I take that and I side bend over the trailing leg, which some of us were doing sort of mistakenly on some of the exercises we were doing today, right? This becomes a backside coil. So for me, the way I sort of pose the idea of the differences between this thought process is this one's for running and this one's for swinging and throwing. And then I want both of them so I can do the thing. So if we kind of give you the side shot here, this one's for running. This gives me this like forward intent to go, right? And then when I take this and I'm over the backside of it, it very clearly looks like I'm hitting a home run, right? I'm throwing a ball, something of that, throwing the javelin, something of that nature. So when I understand that, again, that fundamental language of coil, that's Weck method, side bending, and the end range of it, end range of rotation is what we call it. Then I have the idea of like, what am I training for? Like, do I have like somebody that just wants like capacity and broad spectrum? Like, let's just get good at everything. Or do I have somebody that like, I need them to take 5 steps and then stop and wedge and throw something. Now I have a sequence that maybe I need to develop for this person, and I can use that core function to be a concept to do that. So this is the front side. So this is like a huge landmark posture that we do within this. We move on. This is the same posture. I like that, like, I sort of like that 3/4 shot, like when I teach my coaches. Like if you're walking the room like Alex does, I bet he kind of probably still does this too. Like when you walk, you're sort of checking at that like 3/4 when you're watching somebody do the movement. It gives you a lot of information. Whereas when I look at somebody from just the side or the back or the front, sometimes you're not getting the information you need to see if the person's doing it in a way that you're trying to get across. Move on, thank you. This is where we might explore some of this together when I get you guys moving. We'll kind of play jazz when we get there. But basically what the idea is here is that I can take almost every single general exercise and I'm able to perform a front side variation of it or a backside variation of it, which is what you're going to see here in a second. So now I can have like on Tuesday, I got all the field athletes that are just running. And then on Wednesday, I got tennis players. So they've got a little movement going, but there's a lot of swinging and backside type of hitting. So I might prioritize these exercises when I am working with somebody that's like a runner. Whereas like, we'll scoot on. Next one here, thank you. And then whereas I have people that are coming in, I might do this backside variation. And I didn't dive into the nitty gritty here, but what you'd see if you looked at the cueing is exactly the same basically between the different shapes. And I'm really big, Alex was really big on this with me when I worked with him, teaching me to say less and do more. That was really a valuable thing that he taught me. And the idea that like, I want to build intuition in somebody. I want you guys to be intuitive. Like I want you to experience something in yourself and learn to carry that into your practice in a way that's meaningful to you. And I think hearing less sometimes allows you to experience what's going on. So I think having really solid cues that work across the board to people that mean the same thing in similar ways is super valuable, especially as you start to get into more nuanced type of things. If there's a lot more like, I gotta have you here and here and here, then it kind of takes over the experience for the person and they can't trust themselves. And they have to start trusting your words and not their feeling. So developing these coils really gets a sense of feel in the body, and then the cueing around what makes that feel more profound it ends up being able to be carried over between a lot of different exercises or modalities. Let's scoot on to this. And then I just show like a side shot and a front shot again, so it's all sort of consistent. And then the same exact exercises I showed a moment ago being done a different way, all right? So this is all the backside variation of common exercises. Move. Okay, cool, let's pause. I'm gonna get us up if that's cool. Is everybody down for that? Kind of find some space in the room. I'm gonna take you guys through. What I wanna do is, I mentioned that coiling is Weck method, okay? So, thank you, ma'am. I really wanna make sure that you guys get to experience the coil. I know some of you probably already felt it a lot from this morning. So what you're gonna get from me is you're gonna get that backside coil right now. So that's gonna be that difference. It's gonna paint that different picture for you guys and where we can take this. So we're gonna do positions before transitions. So I still live by that rule. We're gonna work on the top part of a movement, the bottom part of the movement, and then we're gonna move between the positions. A, B, pretty simple, okay? Do whatever feels right for you. I'm going to demo this 2 ways before we get started. And the range of motion of this is irrelevant, okay? Like I don't just match my shape because I'm going to go deep into it. This exercise, if you're somebody that's hurting right now, can't move a lot, this is front side, okay? And that could be the depth of it. It doesn't have to be any different than that. I think Alex, you did the wall drill today, I imagine, Alex? The wall stretch? Always, right? Yeah, so it's nice and tall like that. So this doesn't have to be deep. I'm going to demonstrate it very deep, so you can see the possibilities with it. But what I want to do is we're going to take hands. You can clasp them, hold them, just keep them near each other, act like you're holding a ball, whatever it be, but clasping's good. Pulling apart or pressing together is usually a good guide. We're going to be here, so we're going to throw this elbow high or in front, again, depending on your mobility. And we're going to just take the trailing leg. We're going to make the right leg the coil. Trailing leg goes back, so the weight is all here. I got 100% of my weight here. We're going to just draw up and pull the shoulder down to the hip or that landmark position, and I want you just to get a sense of something contracting here. Yes? Most of the room got something going on there? Yeah, you can speak. You don't have to be quiet on me. Thank you. I like audible feedback. It's important to me. Yeah, there we go. Dave Weck. Yep. So we got that, okay? We're going to establish our second position, where we're going to move to. And for us, we're going to go to this open side of the body, and you're going to retain the weight here, and we're going to pursue something in front of us. So our eyes and our head have to get closer to it. So that could be there for most of us, especially if you're crowded, like in the row. Or if you're feeling it, you can get more depth, and you might find yourself really chasing the angle. But this should be outside of this experience here, it should be easy. I'm floating, I'm loose, okay? Beautiful, okay? So this is front side coil. We'll stand up, just crank out and see how we came out. Everybody sort of went, ooh, I'm done. You're not coiling. You just did RMT, okay? I don't want RMT. Lock in, okay? In and out, and I'm not releasing. So now we're going to go for just like 4 reps or something at your own pace, but do not allow the shoulder to climb. Okay? Chase that contraction and that feeling on either end of it. Keep weight in front foot 100%. 100%, baby. Yeah. And are we keeping claps? Yeah, just keep them claps. That's what I said. Whatever's comfortable with your hands right now. Your hands and your legs are actually, I guess your leg isn't completely irrelevant to me right now, but for the most part, your hands are irrelevant. All right? Because I'm going to put a tool in your hands one day. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's beautiful. Don't even think about it. Just this. This is what I want you to get honed in on, okay? And whatever that little experience it is you're getting now, I want you to find it like you keep making you make an adjustment. Is a push or a pull make it contract more, right? Cool. That's front side. Most of you already got that experience today, okay? Now we're going to experience the other side, okay? Now when we're doing this one, we set up the same way. So I sort of like, I already get my weight on this outside. I'm doing right side right now. So I set up that right side. I draw this apart, okay? I'm gonna take this leg now and I'm gonna step forward. So I step forward at like an angle, like if I'm in a box, it's to the opposing corner, or the like caddy corner, okay? I have that, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop and pivot. So the weight and the head stay over the foot, but it's over the back foot this time. We drop and pivot. All right, and now I'm using that like a wedge, okay? So like if I were to lift that leg up, I'm always gonna fall back into it, but my weight is here. And I should be able to find a similar feeling here on the back side, yeah? Okay, and then the elbow might drive through. This is where you gotta think like I'm going to hit the home run, but I'm not going to run the bases yet. The bases are gonna switch me to the front side. I'm gonna try to get as far into that as I can, without switching over. Beautiful. Yeah. Let that elbow out now. Let that elbow to me. No, the bottom one. That guy. Dig into that. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. Nice. Yeah, that's it. Really nice, guys. Same but different, right? Similar thought process, different experience, totally different outcome and why we would use it, but showed that you can do, I can do rows on the backside here with somebody if I felt like that was some exercise that matters. Cool, great, if that's part of my protocol, but I can also switch here and do it. Or I can step through it, right? And now I'm gonna have like an athletic transition. That's gonna get my bowling. If I got somebody that crushes the lanes, man, that's what we're training here, right? The most important thing everybody came here to do. We're going bowling tonight, guys, if you guys want. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm just, FYI, I'm just fucking terrible at it. Yeah, just the worst bowler ever. Cool. All right, so we have two different positions. We've explored front side. We've explored back side. Now I want to actually step through it. Okay, so this would be making that athletic transition and retaining the coil. So if this is your first time doing it, a lot of times when your foot goes to step, your brain's going to tell you to go to the front side again or make the switch. Like it keeps wanting to do these because that's walking. You've done a bunch of this your whole life, right? Now those little athletic experiences that maybe you don't do anymore, like bowling or doing like some sort of step up to throw, maybe that's out of your wheelhouse now, but we can train those specific patterns now. So the idea, we'll go ahead and preset that coil. Always just start at the top. You should be able to find it nice and easy here. Set the intention of it. I've got it. I take that, I'm going to create a trailing leg, and I'm going to coil over that front leg, okay? Eyes are targeted on something. We have like a forward intent. I'm your intent right now. You're listening to me, most of you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to step through. So it may not have an up and over feel to it. You might feel like you're stepping through, and you're going to retain that idea of keeping the right shoulder to the right hip. So the elbows and hands and all this can move. This is the tool wielding. But the core intent is staying on that right side bend throughout the exercise. That's it. And again, if you keep your hands like stuck, it works, but your hands want to release. You want to hit the ball. Again, that idea of like I have an axe and I'm walking up to a tree and then I stop and hit it. You know what I mean? That's it. That will come up. Yeah, that's it. That's beautiful. Very nice, guys. Everybody's looking pretty sharp. Yeah, keep that left shoulder down hard. I'll associate, if you're familiar with Pac-Man, I try to think of the shoulder and the hip as like Pac-Man's mouth, like close the mouth, don't let it open. I don't know why Pac-Man.
I was seeing your foot come up a little.
I don't actively lift my heels at all. I want everything to be, at this point, like very loose and passive and soft so that you can create tension where you want it, okay?
What's natural to you?
Yeah, just kind of, at first you're learning something, you're trying something, so in that learning experience you're trying to control it. And the more you let go of the control, the more you sort of just put yourself in the environment, you'll be able to soften yourself and find it deeper. And now that there's gonna be this like, there's a structural endpoint here, like I can't go any further, so that's it. Like that's where it is, so when I soften to it, I can experience it, and I can build off of it. All right, and that's what we're after, all right? Cool, all right? Feel pretty good? Dope, you can take a seat again, I think. Oh, nah, stay up. Let's move this over. Stay up, sorry. Get your butt up. Switch. We'll try the torsion stuff, okay? So basically, I'm gonna be very brief on this. I don't wanna go heavily into this, but this kind of stuff might be educate further why I would choose certain exercises for certain individuals. So once you start exploring this concept, okay, it's sort of, all of this always just have like a what if thought process and exploratory. Nothing is perfect, right? We're exploring. I'm constantly testing it and exploring it and making sure it's right. But the general thought process of this is that there are two different systems in the body, this idea of external torsion and internal torsion. So instead of thinking like flexion and extension of the body, and keeping it a little more robotic like that. It's all about this idea of like getting around and getting through something, right? So we can combine that. This is something I think I'm particularly good at, is the ability to use two sides of the body differently. So being like I'm getting through something and around it simultaneously. I think that is a very unique expression of this. But the goal of it is to start, this is that softness I'm talking about. I didn't really know how to talk about it when I was first learning all this stuff, this easing into things. And what that means is I'm trying to learn to use my whole body as a system. And this is like a really nice guide to be able to do it and still be able to like move a lot of weight and build tissue on the body in a way I want to develop it. All right, so move to the next one. Yeah, it's just some exercises that are super simple to do just to experience it. One of the easiest ones I've always used to teach it, all of you have probably done it, and it's literally to make your bed and throw your sheets over the bed. So when you throw your sheet up, you go into external and internal. So it's like this very easy athletic expression of just get it up and pull it down, right? When you pandiculate or you yawn, so wake up in the morning and you're fetal and you wake up and yawn, that is the external to internal. Yoga, when you do a sun salutation, that is external to internal. There's all these expressions of that we kind of have in our life that we tend to go like, I felt really nice and easy and felt good. And the ability to move between the two of them is really helpful. Where do we want to do this? Everybody cool laying on the floor? It's probably the easiest way with this group. Yeah, let's get on the floor. This is always really attractive on video, people laying on the floor. Yeah. So let's start with the less common one, which would be more like the Superman type of feel, and that's gonna be laying on your face, okay? yeah, just get your face down. All right, and then what I want to do is I'm going to play with your hands. So I'm going to show you how, I'm really big on proximal movement, so that being the core first. And then I like to bring distal stuff in to help amplify the experience. So we're going to do that with this one. If you guys sort of take your hands out in front of you and hug them together, and then what I want you to do is draw your hands apart while keeping your wrists together and your fingers straight. So that creates like a diamond, okay? When you have that diamond, I want you to roll the diamond so that it's just your index finger and your thumb. And you have this like extension of the wrist, okay? You're gonna draw your hands back while trying to keep that diamond sort of facing in front of you, if not up. And we're gonna lift up the feet or the thighs, and we're gonna try to draw the elbows down to the tailbone. And the goal here is essentially you should be trying to contract like into the lower back. We'll call it the lower fascial lat or whatever we wanna call it. I don't actually care. We're all experiencing something down in the lower back. You might feel the glute medius turn on, so like the outer portion of the glute. That would be a big indicator to me that you're on the right track. And then the third point of it is I like to think of the pec minor and trying to remove all of the slack from it. So if you feel like your shoulders rolling forward when you go into this posture, you're not amplifying it enough to dig and drive down into that lower back. Nice. We go in here, so you just go in here, and we're just going for holds right now. So right now what you'd be doing is you're trying to experience the systemic torsion line, which a lot of people would just call this like a back extension or whatever they want to call it. But when you do this, like we put in front of our clients at the lab, we'll put these maps in front of them so that they can try to visualize and stimulate that tissue along the line. And the sort of rule set behind it is you start at the trunk, or the proximal, and then you work your way out to the distal portions of the body. Cool? So that would be external torsion. Okay, that's that yawn and stretch. We'll flip over, and you just get to feel a hollow. Everybody has done this. Everybody is too good at this typically. Some people are very weak in it, and a lot of coaches will use this as the first, somebody's first exposure to like a movement practice, is they will emphasize the internal torsion line a lot. They'll like tuck your butt and squeeze. Try to get your abs engaged. Like your glute max is weak. Like get your big toe to bite the ground. Like there's going to be all these cues that sort of like will start somebody's journey on creating an intuitive connection to their body. And this tissue line will line up with that a lot. But then you'll get somebody that's like an athlete that is like extremely good at it, like a wrestler or an MMA fighter that prioritizes like grappling. And they might end up having some problems because of it. They don't feel like they're good at their striking game, or they don't feel like they can run well. Like they're super fast, but if they like to go get some road work in, they kind of feel sticky or icky or something. And it might be just because they have like an imbalance between the lines of torsion. And that's all it could be. And it could just be, I'm gonna change 3 of my exercises to to mimic one of these styles of movement systemically, and it might carry over to a better result for the person. So this one's super easy. We're gonna point your toes really hard. A couple things you're gonna think about is you're gonna try to get your VMO, so just the inside of your knee there, to just squeeze as tight as you can. And you're gonna try to squeeze your ass as tight as you can. You're gonna bring your hands down, but more importantly, I want you to think about steering your elbows to your belly button. So a lot of people, when they do hollows, they feel like that structural part of their body gets in the way, like hands by side. I want you to try to imagine touching your elbows in front of your belly button. So actually like pulling them together, like if you could touch your forearms together, and creating as much length as you can, and just lifting and squeezing. And internal torsion does not mean we create flexion in the spine per se. You don't have to like hunch over and crunch fully. You can have like that longer side of your body. But it usually will create like a quake in your body when you keep it long. Like we're getting the quakes a little bit. We like that. Okay, that's good. Very cool. Cool. I thought you were flicking me off, man. They threw the bird at me. It was like, fuck this. I came here to sit and listen to you guys, man. Why aren't you participating, Dave? Why aren't you participating, Dave? I'm just messing with you. I know. What's after this? I don't even remember what's on here, guys. Oh, cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great. This is the last thing I want to talk about. This is really good. And then we can we'll fiddle around. I'll demonstrate some stuff and examples of things. So let's stand up. You can sit down. Yeah, you can sit down. Thank you guys for kind of entertaining me and move. I like to get people feeling things. Yeah, oh, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. You're the man. You feel good? Yeah, cool. Usually gets you fired up, gets you feeling good, and it's a lot of holds. So when we start stuff, I spend a lot of time in like isometrics, like positional work, trying to get somebody used to a feeling and a sensation, and then sort of from that point, I get movement right away, but the movement and the sequencing can evolve, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit, and I'll give some exercise examples, and we could get up again and practice if we want, but you help me with this, Alex, the ratio. Yeah, I love the ratio. I swear by this thing now. I live by it. So one of the biggest challenges, like when like thinking about like developing a language for a lot of different movement and trying to explain it is like, you needed to be able to meet the modalities I'm saying it matches and all the different coaches that I communicate with that have different programming like hierarchies and architectures. And a big component of that, I'm going to give the example of just like, is most people in here a coach? Am I accurate saying that? Like most of you are coaches, yeah, cool. The idea, a lot of people do like the big like push, pull, squat, hinge type of thing as a coaching protocol. Has everybody run that? If maybe you're not doing it now, but maybe you have done it at some point in your career. But this really fits really nice into that hierarchy as an explanation to it. And the idea is that like if I'm going to do pushes today or in this section of the day, is that I need to do a push that is bilateral, I need to do one that is coiled, and I need to do one that is RMT. If I'm going to do squat patterns today, I need to do one that is bilateral, coiled, and RMT. And just by name on board. So when coach writes up name on board, I don't care about sets reps. Like I don't care about the evenness between that. You can go into that nightmare of trying to do that, and that's up to you if you're A-type like that. But just by name of exercise, I want it to follow this ratio. And I think it's really powerful. I've explored it a ton with my athletes, and the smiles I get of people leaving and walking back in the door of how they feel in their bodies, I think is really profound, and how they perform in what they're doing. I feel like they're able to put more effort in, they feel better, they have better walks out. So an example of this, just easy demonstration. I'm going to do squat stuff because I think the squat stuff, you've already experienced the lunge today. It's easy to see. It puts a lot of our cueing together. But the idea of a coiled squat would be something like a split squat, okay? So a split squat, just being here, a lot of people, if you're working with athletes, it's going to be like a rear elevated split squat. I'm coiled here, so this is front side. Cool, yeah, all right. Somebody's paying attention. Cool. So this is a front side coiled split squat. I would just sit here and I stay coiled the whole time, all right? So maybe I crank out 8 reps of this, right? If I did one side, what do I got to do? The other side, right? Yeah, cool. So I'm going to do the other side, right? I got 8 more reps. I have finished my coils, okay? That has made me expose this range of motion and this intent that now I'm gonna be like, you know what, I got some back squats I gotta get today. So I'm gonna load up the bar, I got some back squats, right? And I might be able to funnel, because I've experienced something and felt something now just prior, I can funnel deeper as I go into that back squat. I can load the bar lower, which means I can up the weight substantially. If the bar feels, even if it just feels like it's lower internally, right? Now I have one center and I've worked 2 side bends. Coil, coil, 1 center. Then what we do is I call it walking it out, and you just go to RMT. So now I just go back to the initial pattern, and I go right and I go left. And maybe I have an across the room drill now, and I have somebody moving across the room. We're hitting walking lunges. Okay? If I don't have room to go across the room, it's just like a quick alternate back and forth. All right? So the ratio is four side bends to 1 center. It will create a sense of decompression, but it does not remove the value of working in the center. And I feel like this was sort of for me to counteract some of the idea of like, I gotta get these people moving better, and you'll forget that like loading people and getting pressure management on people is really valuable for all ages and levels, right? So I don't wanna remove the center stuff. I wanna make sure it's still in there, and I wanna find balance in it. And I want to use the coil, which is the foundation of WEC method, to educate the center, to make the center even stronger, okay? If Bo and Dylan and all y'all think I'm actually pound for pound one of the strongest people, that is why. Is because I'm using the sides to educate the center, to make me feel like I'm using my body as a system, and I don't have to be as big because I'm using more with less, or I'm doing more with less type idea, right? Or doing more with more intent, or however you want to put it. So that ratio becomes this really nice, easy concept across the board that I present to all my coaches as like an immediate sort of strategy to implement into your programming, okay? And like, I've built like class models for a couple like box gyms that like, I got a group X room. What's really nice about this is like, I can do like, today's like total body day, and I can do push, pull, squat, hinge, core, front, back, you know what I mean? And all I gotta do is just pick an exercise in each of those categories that sort of match that rotational language. It does a lot of the work for you as a coach so that you can focus on what you love doing, and that's coaching, not the sitting at home programming or the frantic driving into work to program type thing. I know I used to do that a lot, so. Cool, all right, I don't think there's actually anything, there might be. Whatever, yeah, that's me doing pushes and hinges and squats. I think that's it, cool, yeah, awesome. I don't need that anymore. So I wanted to talk about some specific examples, okay? So where's what's his name? That's down here, right, in Florida, baseball?
Oh, Diesel.
Diesel, yeah.
Diesel Optimization, Tampa.
Yeah, in Tampa. So it's down here working with some baseball guys, some pitchers specifically at Diesel Optimization. And I was trying to show them like more specific of how we could say like, I literally am just working with pitchers today, but I want to do a strength and conditioning protocol for them. Like that is like a very clear, like this is what this guy does. It's specific. So we can take like, oh, I love doing squats. I love doing rows. I love doing presses with this guy. I want to build those general attributes, but we're going to start thinking of that core driven or rotational type of movement. And we're going to break down the pitch. So I'm going to sort of like show you a pitch, and we can all sort of agree together if we think that based on the language I've sort of been presenting to you guys, if it looks like that, all right? And I'm no pitcher, but if I'm here and I'm ready to do the pitch, this is what I would refer to as a front side coil. I'm poised, I've got the hip up, that's that lead leg, right? I'm coiled. I'm gonna block, and I'm gonna drop into the back, and what am I now? Backside, right? I'm gonna now have expression through the backside, woo, power comes out, right? And then I'm gonna dip where? Back to front side, okay? So now I'm like, okay, like I'm working with pitchers today, and most everybody's technique I think is gonna follow suit. Maybe there's some oddball out there. I'm not a pitcher or a pitching coach, but I'm seeing front side to backside to front side. So if nothing else, I'm seeing that spinal engine or rotational sort of transition in the trunk, and that's the attribute I wanna train with somebody, okay? Then I could look at it another layer and be like, it's poised front side, so like balance, so I do isos. Then I drop into position, and then I express power. So I add intensity at that moment So I'm teaching the core to balance, drop, and then add intensity back to balance or funnel. And we can all try this, actually. This is good. You can actually stay at your chair. You just got to push the chair in front of you slightly ahead. So if you're the row in front of people, just kind of make sure you give room to people. I'll demo it first, but the rear elevated split squat, I mentioned that being part of the athletic program. And what I'm going to do is we're going to do a Bulgarian split squat, and we're going to make it sports-specific driven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be, which is really cool too, if you do rear elevated split squats and you don't do them coiled yet, they'll like, where am I? Like everybody putting their back leg up and they start falling over the place, right? If you get somebody to coil first, they're poised. They feel balanced. They've got like a structural hold, something that is consistent that they can work on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go front side, okay? We go down. We're going to go up and over to back side and drop. And then we're going to explode up and back to front. So you add that little power, okay? So that's a rep, okay? And now I'm going to do 5 reps of this. Like that's the set today. I go down front. I go up and over to the back. I explode back to the front and reset. And that is rep 2. All right? So it's front, up and over, nice and easy. Explode, whatever that be for you, up and over to the front again. All right? And on the core perspective of it, that is this to that, okay? And then we add those distal properties to it, and then you could get fancy with what you're doing when you're doing the exercise. But again, if I got like a room of like 20 kids and I know their pitchers, like just gonna keep it simple and just do that. That's like another added layer to just a simple exercise I think most people eventually do with somebody. Very good. Beautiful. Nice. Feeling it? Cool. Then there was like the bowling, like not that it's a thing, but like you'll notice that they're coiled on one side and they might go from front to back to front to back, and then they'll express back to front on the other side. So like in a sequence like that, again, when you're looking at like a very specific action, you know somebody's going to take like 4 steps and then transition, your training protocol can sort of follow suit, right? And you can still do all the exercises you love, and we can move through it. So that one again is front, back, and then I RMT. So now I have to teach somebody like, we go like coil row like this, right? Oh, geez. Right? And then I might like step and pull or something like that. And it might mimic the behavior that I'm trying to do and the sequencing of why I might choose it, which allows a lot of creativity, a lot of fun in your programming, and confidence in what you're doing and why, and bringing it to people. And then the cueing hierarchy of it and the architecture of it is all the same. So you get to add this variance and variability that people crave. They want to do more without constant like change. It's something consistent to bring across the board, all right? Cool, take a seat. Love it. I want to hear from you guys a little bit. Is there any questions on any of that kind of stuff? Yeah, I want to talk to you guys a little bit, be interactive about it, okay?
So if you have an athlete that does a sport that requires mainly internal torsion,
Yeah.
how often are you having the athlete do external
Beautiful.
versus reinforcing them?
Yeah, so very, very clearly the way I've explored that is like right now I'm working with fighters a lot right now and they're very internal heavy, everybody I've worked with in that field. And none of them are particularly in pain. So this is one thing I would recommend. Nobody's like in pain from it per se, but I still think it's a good medicine for them to work on the opposing side of it. So what I do in that scenario is I do a lot of isometrics. So I do a lot of positional work externally, but I don't do a lot of like patterning externally. That makes sense? So like I'm not like picking exercises to do with them where there's like repetition and like shape changing. I just go in and do like long duration holds. Like I do 90-second holds, 3-minute holds or something like that as somebody in postures that mimic external torsion. So they're aware of it and they're usually screaming at me the whole time because it feels like the hardest thing they've ever done in their life because it's so opposed to what they do. But they tend to feel really good at it and then perform a little better in their internal stuff within the session.
So you start with the external.
I don't have to, I'm not going to say I don't really actually care. It's not like an order of it. It would just be like I've done the whole, like, I literally, if the person's well, I could prioritize all internal torsion stuff and just go with it. But then if they kind of were telling me, like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling sluggish, like, on the mat today, like, something's not feeling right, I'll work that whole other energy system on them. And I usually, like I said, just do it through holds. Sometimes I might add movement, but for the most part, I would just focus on holds, especially, like, as we're prepping for, like, a fight. Like, Angie had a fight this weekend, so there was, like, a lot of holds just to keep her feeling healthy, especially, like, leading up, because she's sparring more. She's getting more, like, ready for game day type thing. So a lot of holds, so there's not a lot of patterning that's deviating from what she's trying to get good at type thing, right? And then the work we do, that's all, like, internal. Cool? Yeah. And then, like, she was like, I've trained Angie now for, like, 4 years, 3 years? Probably 3 years. And a lot of my exploration has been with her. I really appreciate her kind of as somebody that's helped guide me as a coach too. And having come to me and asked for specific things too. Like, there are specific strategies sometimes. MMA is, like, chaotic a little bit, but there's strategies going into a fight. And, like, having certain sequences she needed to get good at allowed me to really explore this concept of, like, sequencing and seeing the real carryover of it and how that applies, like, when it's go time, you know what I mean? And it's been really cool to see how successful that has been and how, like, an athlete will embrace it without it being like this, like, wordy thing. I'm trying to convince them to do my thing. We're just doing the thing. And, like, them starting to show me pictures of, like, man, those are, like, the shapes we're making. And wow, like, this is really carrying over. And you're kind of saying the same thing my other coach is saying, like, in a different modality, which is really nice too. It's refreshing as a coach, you know? So we all love what we do. So that energy exchange is really valuable and important. More questions? Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like you grew up as a carpenter.
Yeah.
And led you to being prone to accepting, coil, rotational, things like that. What do you use, and how do you, not necessarily program, but emphasize mimicking that work in a way and mimicking in gym work?
Yeah. Yeah, so Alex used to give me grief for this all the time. I feel like, because I don't like, I can program and I enjoy programming. I used to write programs a lot and follow them and stuff, but I found in my own practice that, like, it wasn't about the program. That wasn't, like, what I was after. And it was more this, like, some people I think call it task-driven kind of training. So, like, I actually probably get my best workouts when, like, I'll just clean the lab, like, constantly. Like, every week I'll just change the whole lab, like, because, like, that was like a job site. I kind of just had to get stuff done. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm gonna move all the dumbbells from here to there. You know what I mean? And then I get to experience all this stuff real time. I do like sets and reps and all that stuff as well. But I know in my own training and that thought process of, like, my youth is there's, like, a different task that has to be done. I gravitated, I think, towards CrossFit for quite a few years because I liked that idea of, like, a WOD, or especially the landmark sort of WODs and that sort of stuff. There was, like, an achievement, like something I had to go test myself on, and I didn't do it for a while. Like, I liked that mindset. For me personally, that's now tools. So, like, I might, for a period of time, excel on sandbags and, like, trying to chase some big achievement for myself on that. And then all of a sudden I won't touch a sandbag for, like, a year. And I'll work on kettlebells or calisthenics or something else. And that's what I was saying, is I have always had that, like, need and crave to experience other modalities and ways of moving, especially now as, like, an educator and a teacher. I want to experience more so I can communicate, like, on a real level with you. Yeah, that's, like, the biggie, is that, like, this language and general thought process lives under all that, and even under the idea of, like, I'm going to do, like, a 5x5 program for whatever, or I'm going to do Galdites something or whatever. Yeah, it kind of lives under it. It's really cool. It's the principles of the biomechanics that I'm after now, and I almost feel like I'm doing the same thing every day. I've now started creating some more understanding of it for myself, so there's some things I feel like I have to actually play with and balance now, but for the most part, it's just, like, the ability to explore and funnel it to that. That kind of answer it? Yeah.
Do you use, like, any actual, like, we're gonna just shovel some mulch today, or?
I don't actually, like, I wouldn't do that with somebody. Okay. You know what I mean? Because I don't think somebody is thinking that. That would be more my exposure to it. I have a general, like, intensity hierarchy I would follow with somebody. Like, we move fast. Actually, yes, so I'll talk about this. So the first thing I do with everybody, actually, is I throw med balls at walls. And I use it, it's not so much, I use it with really light balls, and so under 10 pounds. And the idea is to build sequencing. And I usually, over 4 sets and under 20 reps, am looking for them to get as fast as they can and as coordinated as they can within that. And then I'll get into, are we putting on, do we need to put 15 pounds on you? Are we taking weight off? Like, what are we doing? And I'll kind of go through the hierarchy of any sort of intensity program that maybe you're already doing. I follow the rules on that, you know what I mean? But again, the positional stuff or the torsional stuff lives under those traditional programming thought processes. And that's why I said this is more of like a language. It's not like this is our method and you got to like scratch what you've been doing. It's kind of like hey, like look at what you're doing. In my mind, you're already doing it. It's just like now you could sort of define why you're doing it, and you might see some imbalances on stuff that maybe you want to balance or maybe you don't. It's just it's a different language of looking at it that could create some clarity as a coach. And I think that's what we're looking for a lot of time, is to feel clear and confident on what we're doing so that we can present that to people, right? And I feel like super clear and confident of why I'm choosing what I choose now. So, anybody else?
When it comes to mobility, like, would you say that the positional training, it teaches your body to be able to withstand positions and then you could get deeper, or is it like you do specific movements,
Yeah,
specific training for mobility?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So like, I'll mention a couple things on this. So there's a concept we call both sides utilized. So like this is a form of mobility. Like I've found that this is an end range of motion that I'm strong in, and then I have to get the capacity to get it on the other side. And then I have capacity between the sides. So there's that like finding end range. You could sort of decide what shapes you want to do that on. That could be specific to you, like task driven, whatever that is. And then I'll say in my own mobility is like I'm somebody that used to do my splits. And I used to have all this range of motion that I used to chase in a lot of things in different skill sets. And I have noticed that I have sacrificed some of that now, you know what I mean, in order to feel more complete. And I feel very complete and sound in my body. And like I can make really extreme shapes, but like touching my toes is not as comfortable as it used to be, you know what I mean? And I feel that that is an irrelevant task for me now, because like I can do these like big broad shapes that allow me to make big efforts and expressions and be powerful, feel strong. And I am mobile, that is mobility. It's like owning your capacity. And I feel like this does it in a very complete way. And then you could chase the range of that capacity as much as you want. And a lot of that comes from that both side thought process. And in the hierarchy of how I'm learning all of it, it used to just be like left, right. Now it's like front, left, and front, or back, left, and front, right. You know what I mean? And then it's torsion. Like you could get really nitty gritty with it. And I don't really encourage people to do that. That's overthinky. Like I don't want you to do that as a coach. I want you just to have to run enough reps in your own head to kind of know the thing that's happening, and then be able to let the person, I'd rather see the person move and sort of go like, that's probably what they're doing, and maybe we can steer it this way with some very minimal cueing or whatever and keep it fresh, okay? That kind of answer?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the worst at answering questions.
Like, what I gathered from that was that you're saying that the mobility itself is more of a preference thing, and then or like the deeper ranges is more so you're comfortable with, and then you just wanting to perfect the movement.
Yeah, I mean, I want somebody to be mobile, and I think that you don't have to be as mobile as some people think. I think people chase some mobility that maybe is unnecessary to them for human function. You know what I mean? And most of us don't have anything we really have to function for. We're pretty like blessed. We're all sitting in a room with AC right now and like talking with TVs, and we're all gonna go get dinner tonight. You know what I mean? Like we don't really have a task that's like detrimental to our health and well-being that we need to be really like physical for. So we have some room to sort of branch off of the natural human nature of what we need to do and sort of do what we want. And I love that. I think you should chase that stuff, because I think your mindset and the way that you feel from something like that is just as valuable as moving well. Like I could give two shits if you move well, if you're chasing something you love, you know what I mean? If that means something to you, that's almost more important. I think people scratch that sometimes. So what I would want somebody to do here is like when you rebuild your thought process, core out, it will change your mobility a little bit at first, but you'll be like performing a different way, and the expression of it will feel really good. And then from there, like reattain the mobility with that new thought process. Like I really do actually want to go back, like chase my splits and all that stuff, which when you do all that stuff, there's like, you'll see that people utilize this thought process in it without funneling it from the same place. So it's like guiding that thought process now with this intention behind it, I think makes it more powerful. Cool? That makes sense for most people? Yeah, I don't know.
How do you assess an athlete and realize what you're going to be mainly focusing on in the goal?
That's cool. So usually, so like, just like you might do with anybody when you're doing like some sort of goal, like orientation with somebody, the more specific you can be. I do some examples of these in our like I teach 2 education courses. I'll drop that real quick. So I teach a level 1 that's 1 day. It's called the RMTS. And then I teach a level 2 that's like a 2-day event that I dive a little more into programming like that, the depths of that. And I call it a determining intent. So there's like patterning intent, which is sort of like actually doing the movement the way it's meant to, like you're trying to get it. But then there's also like talking to somebody and trying to like get that information out of them if it's not just a visual, like I need to do this with the person. And Angie was a perfect example of that because Angie came to me and said like, I've got to be, like she needed to be here and take a step back. Like that was the mission. Like that is going to drop the person that I'm going to fight in the fight, and I'm looking for that opportunity. And when I hit that opportunity, it needs to be as powerful as possible. So in my mind, that was like, she's internal torsion athlete. I already know that. Like that's it in my head. And then she needs to move from a front side coil to a front side coil. And it needs to happen in the backdrop. That's a pretty simple example of it. But like, that was where the person in my little orientation with her was telling me what I needed to hear, and that needed to be a focus for me. Yeah?
What if they don't know?
Then if they don't know, then I can do extra work to try to analyze somebody and like look at patterns that happen in their sport. Or if they don't have a sport, then I just have, now I'm just working with like a general fitness person, then it's just about capacity. And I would start with walking first, and that would be front side, right? I want to make sure that that person, when they leave the gym, which was when I first met Dave, one of the first, I'll tell the Dave story real quick. So when I first met Dave, I did a coil with him in whatever capacity we did it back then, and I set like a 40-pound one-arm press PR, so I did a 68-kilo bent press, and I had only done like 115-ish pounds or whatever. I don't remember, something like that. But like literally from one exposure of it and tapping into something I had not felt, that he told me was going to be about walking, which is what I'm telling you guys, I set a huge PR in something I cared about, was a kettlebell bent press. And then, where was I even going with that? Jeez.
Walking, you said you would start with walking front side.
Oh, yeah. And then, like, I started doing stuff with Dave, and we're teaching it, and, like, I'm going through, like, my first reps of, like, running education courses on it and really living it and preaching it and, like, putting all my love into the teaching of it and practicing. And I very clearly remember walking through the grocery store and, like, my heels flicking and me just feeling like that release and just feeling like I was actually walking better from just assimilating this stuff and not even fully comprehending what I'm assimilating at this point, you know? I'm always learning. I'm still learning. And like, but I just remember that profound feeling of walking better and just the smile on my face and the ease of life and joy of life of just that simplicity of something like that you take for granted a little bit, that most people get a little achy or stuck, or you just get up and get there. You make it happen, you know what I mean? Get up and get to the next seat as quick as you can, maybe, like some people are doing. So if I can make that function work better, then I'm happier. And if I'm doing something that's making me feel better and happier, I'm gonna keep doing it. You know what I mean? So as a coach for a general person coming in, I'm making them feel better, making them happier. They're leaving feeling that way, that ratio I gave you, that's why I call it walking out, because the last exercise they do, it had that reciprocating effect. So when they stand up after working out or whatever we did, they're walking out the door already prepped for it. I prepped them to walk out the building, and they're gonna walk back in RMT. And then like we're gonna get to all that other stuff that exposes and strengthens that concept, all right? So for most people, you just chase that, especially like any of my coaches when they first come in, like that's what I want you to train first, is like the idea of locomotion, train that, or at least walking the bipedal. And then as you experience it and you're watching somebody assimilate that and understand it, then you sort of can branch out into the sport-specific stuff. Cool? Any more?
In the programming, are you always programming that sequence as far as like a coil burst and like a bilateral movement and then a locomotion?
I have explored that in a couple different fashions. I have done it where I prioritized coiling for a month. I prioritized bilateral for a month and then RMT for a month. I have found that order of it makes the most sense. I think it makes the most sense to me, and I think it just makes the most sense. A coil is the deepest range of rotation. You can expose something deeper there than you can in the center. So feeling that makes the center feel better. And then once I've bound myself up, got some pressure management here, I need to unwind a little bit. So then experiencing both sides I think is really valuable. And I went through 100 different programs, free and paid courses like online, and I marked them all, the exercises based on what they were. And I found that most programming were either like all bilateral, like Men's Health, you're gonna do squats and burpees and push up and pull up. It's all bilateral. And like there was no rotation in it. So somebody's getting healthy and they're moving, they're feeling great, but they weren't getting better at shifting their weight for walking. So they're missing a component in that program, right? It was a great exercise. My heart feels great. My muscles feel great. Then I ran through some that were a little more like functional or whatever, like their approach, their marketing approach. And there was a lot of RMT. So there was like walking lunges, and we're gonna go for a run today, or like you're gonna do lateral hops or something like that. So there's this expression from left to right, and then they did the stuff in the center. So there was like this 1-to-1 ratio. Like it ended up like equaling out, or like a 2-to-1 or something like that. And what I found with that, when you don't coil, that's why I said Weck method is coiling. So if you want to get into what we do, you got coil, because coil is like you're exposing the deepest range of motion. And if you don't expose it, you're not going to capitalize on it in the RMT. This is Dave's head over foot. If anybody's heard Dave spit out head over foot all the time, what you'll notice is when somebody runs up a hill or a staircase, you skip a couple stairs or whatever, everybody's head goes over their foot, no matter what, because the rise and intensity of that elevation makes you makes you tap into the most efficient behavior. And then when we get on flat, if I've never even ran up a hill, I've not been exposed to it. So I don't even think to tap the efficiencies that my body's capable of having like a little swaggier walk to it. I mean, or that head over foot sort of concept. That's like a little something I want to do with people all the time. Is that the kind of answer? Yeah. So like I love that one, but explore it. I don't actually think it matters. I think it ultimately, if the ratio gets there, which you don't even have to follow the ratio. You know what I mean? I think it's a wonderful ratio, but I think ultimately if you just get to it at the end of the program, everybody feels happy, but the order is best. Yep. RMT, sorry, rotational movement training. So you had coiling core training, we could say CCT, rotational movement training is RMT. If you see any of the products we have at Weck Method, we have like the RMT Club, a couple are sitting over here, and the RMT rope. So they are tools that tend to make you want to go through those patterns that encourage that right to left core transfer, okay? Yeah.
So like youth athletes that are starting, because everyone's really specializing in their sport nowadays.
Sure.
My kid's going to be a pitcher, please.
Yeah.
8 years old. Are you going to focus more on coiling core, or are you going to try and get him more
Well, this is what I was saying. So like I have a kid, like, and he's just, maybe if somebody's just starting their program and things like that, like I want the ratio. I want the ratio, and then if I know the kid's a pitcher, then I want that sequencing if I'm able to do it. You know what I mean? Like and because that kid's new, maybe Monday and Tuesday or something are more just generalized, and I'm just trying to get them to feel they're 8, their body's changing a lot. We're just trying to create, which I think is actually really important too, is they're changing, but if you can build some consistency in the thought process and the cueing, so as their body changes, they have something to fall back on as they're growing. I think that's really helpful. I do that with like weight cuts with fighters and stuff too. Like their body changes after a big weight cut, and if they were so used to just being strong, I can't just rely on intensity. They had to rely on something under the intensity, and that's the movement. But yeah, so like you could explore all of it. Again, if I got the private kid, I might like fiddle around and use them as a test subject. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna like pattern this stuff like crazy. And then looking for balance of it. So that's, people have always talked about like, well, when sport becomes not healthy anymore, I think kind of like where that cross is because of all the specialization on like a same side. Well, what's special about that is you're admitting that there are sides and there are different patterns. And we're saying here's a solution to understanding that there are sides, and we can sequence the other side, or at least do holds on the other side to keep the body feeling healthy. But I don't need you to be a left-handed pitcher. You know what I mean? But I might be able to make you feel better while you're sitting at your desk at school because you're a kid and you're playing stuff that maybe makes you feel meh. Yeah, so that kind of thought process. Yeah. Us? Yeah.
How would you use this with barbell-specific sports?
Yeah, so like powerlifting, of course. Oh, Olympic, yeah, I mean the general, yeah. So, I mean, powerlifting is bilateral in nature, so the torsion thought process is really helpful there. Some of the technique can change a little bit based on the torsion principle. So I feel like some people, like a sumo deadlift has opportunities for you to be able to do external torsion. So a guy that can like keep pulled back when he lifts comparative to somebody that like hunches over or does like conventional style. Bench, the torsion stuff becomes a big thing there. So then Olympic weightlifting, yeah. So the snatch itself, it's bilateral. And what my big thing on those ones is that you're looking for efficiency and stuff like that. And this is something I teach in my level 2, where we talk about like, I call it an isolated transition, is where you perform a movement within a certain torsion line. So like if I squat and I'm just internal, like I'm doing goblet squats would be an example of that, okay? Or like a Zercher squat or something. It's an internal movement pattern. An Olympic lift has phases. It moves between the torsion lines. So like it might start internal, then it goes to external, and then back to internal as they like catch. So that person needs to get good at moving between the transitions, and it utilizes the thought process we're talking about. So that would be a way I would approach like that. I need that person to make transitions. And then if I see where they make the transitions, like in slow-mo, then I need to know like, oh, they make 2 or 3 transitions. I need to make sure that they have like that sense of sequencing in their body. And that's where I feel like the 1 million broomstick reps somebody does, like in a lot of those sort of sports, that's what they're doing there. They're trying to create the volume and frequency of the transition, and that's what the difficulty of it, right? Which it's harder because it's bilateral. That's like a less intuitive thing for your body to do. So that would be one thought. And then it would be around it. So using the coiled positions to help them tap into their potential more, so more structural potential because of it, and then using the RMT to keep them healthy. So one person specific, he was an Olympic lifter, but he's a power lifter, Donnie Thompson. Is anybody familiar? Yeah. Mr. 3000. So something I thought was really cool just to hear from him. When he was out at the lab and he was teaching like a body tempering thing, he was talking about like the accessory work that he did when he broke the 3000. And a lot of it was this reciprocating lightweight intensity stuff. He was dragging sleds. He was hand-to-hand swinging kettlebells. He just kept mentioning things that had this alternating reciprocating effect to it, which is the RMT thought process, which is the walking it out. It's that thing that made him probably feel like his bones were just feeling a little better than the guy next to him. Because he said that like at that point you're just feeling like your bones are bending and they want to break. And there were guys stronger than him, but they didn't want their bones to break. You know what I mean? So like if that sense of like spiking on one side or whatever it was made him feel healthier to be able to accomplish that, then in my head I look at that as like, it's probably something that really helped that guy. You know, so the accessory work, what keeps me healthy in that sport? If I'm in the center and I'm choosing center drills as accessory, but just more lightweight, then I'm walking like shit and I got this guy walking around, you know what I mean? And then maybe they're not gonna reach their potential, right? So that would be a thought. And then like, look it up after this. I don't have a video of this, but I think he's a world record holder for China in the clean and jerk, and he does it on one leg. So, and he breaks all of his records standing like this on one leg. And what I look at the clean and jerk in the Olympics, I look at it as a backside coil. So like they rack, and then when they go to jump, they boom, like they're technically cocked in the back. The weight's on the kickstand there, and that's why I feel like he goes up like this at the end, because he's super poised and balanced, and that feels really natural at that point. So something to look at there, and that's where I'd be like, oh shit, like I'm gonna do a lot of backside coiling with somebody that does a clean and jerk, right? Cool. Mas? What kind of time was I on too? I don't even know. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just keep answering stuff. I don't have anything else I really care to tell you guys, but without doing a lot more, I want to make you guys move if I want to do something, but questions?
If a person really wants to increase their bilateral lifts, would you still follow the 4-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, then you just play around with intensity. Because it's just intensity. Like I might just do like a 10-second hold of an ISO in a coil, and then I'm gonna like lift, you know what I mean? And then I'm gonna do like rope in between or something. It doesn't even have to associate to the lift itself, right? The ratio doesn't have to, I gave the example of it being like push, pull, squat, hinge and like matching it, but they could be, the patterns become irrelevant to me because the proximal core is what I'm training. I don't care if I'm doing, I could do like all bicep curls in one day and match that, and like I'll feel my abs and my core more than I feel my biceps at the end of the day type thing. So like and I feel like I could run better training my biceps because I was actually training my core the whole time, is the thought. All right, that makes sense? So it's still like all of the stuff you learn from like another coach on like intensity and programming and like sets reps to like achieve things, those all just stack on how I am communicating information.
CT and RMT can be small.
They can be whatever you want, and the duration of them, yeah, it's just the idea that they got presented to the person, okay? And coiling has a lot of benefit in being holds. They don't even have to be movement expressions because they tend to feel a little stickier because somebody's body wants to reciprocate at first. So the movement of it, you don't have to do. Even just holds would be huge for somebody that cares about the center, okay?
How would you go about like dosing these exercises to an athlete that trains on like phases? Like maybe like a strength phase and a power phase,
Mm-hmm.
like a speed phase, maybe like a track athlete?
Yeah, I mean, the ratio just applies to that. It's just intensity. At that point, it's a phase of intensity. So it doesn't, the movement's the same. It's just the intensity at that point. I have explored, again, the idea of like, if I did a month of like positional work, I coiled a lot more. And then I did a month of strength work, and I did a lot more bilateral. And then I did a final month of RMT, and it was just like expression of movement. You know what I mean? And like utilizing blocks like that to do it. That would just be sort of your preference as a coach, but it's still sort of that's what I like about that ratio and some of the language we use for just like normal, like for, yeah, just the ratio, it can be like literally intraset, or it can back out to like my group X class at 60 minutes, like we did this ratio there, or it's like I work out with a sports team and like I got 3 months to get you ready for game day or like season, you know what I mean? And I might have some sort of build up to it, right? And then at that point, it would just be like, just listen to your athletes and your people and see how they're responding to it. But I've sort of played with all of them, and they all seem to work. But I feel like intra-set or intra-workout, like that block of time, if you kind of get the ratio to equal out, it works really nice. And I feel like it's nice for programming. It's like a consistent thing that allows you to be fresh with people too. So I think as coaches, we can get stagnant if we're not exciting ourselves. That's why we'll go to a conference and learn things, right? And then we want to go apply it. But it's like, apply it in a way that still sits with the person you're giving the information in a meaningful way, so it doesn't hijack their progress or things they're doing too, right? Cool? Yeah. You guys are awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys rock. Yeah. Yeah. Bo, get up here. Awesome. I'm going to get off the stage.